It's kerosene. All righty, how are we doing tonight, everybody? Good. Excellent. Well, thank you guys all for joining us for one of Door County's oldest traditions, historic Door County fish boil. I am the boil master here at the old post office. I do every single fish boil here at the restaurant, which comes down to roughly 400 of these every season. And I was also born and raised right here in beautiful Door County. So I'll tell you guys a little bit about our famous fish boils that we do up here, starting with the fish we use. That's what I have right over here. I do walk around the whole circle to show you what they look like before I put them in the kettle. So if you want to get a picture of them, have your phone out and ready, because I got to kind of keep moving. Everything's done on this little timer here. So fish that we use for our fish boils here in Door County, they're all fresh. They're all locally caught Lake Michigan whitefish. They're caught from both sides of the peninsula, Lake Michigan side and out on the bay, depending on the time of year. And we do buy all the fish from local commercial fishermen right here in Door County. We get fresh fish delivered just about every other day. Your fish were all caught yesterday morning. They go lift their nets for them, usually every other morning. So that means you almost always get them cooked 1 or 2 days after they're caught here at the restaurant. If you've never been to a fish boil before, these are whitefish steaks. They are not whitefish fillets. They're basically just chunks of whitefish. I take the whole entire fish and I cut them all up like that into steaks. That's what I was just doing in the kitchen a minute ago. That does mean that all of the bones are still in the fish, which does kind of throw a lot of people off. However, the servers quickly remove the bones for you here at the restaurant right before they serve it to you. So believe me, it does make for a much nicer experience not having to deal with all those little fish bones. And also too, this is only half of the fish for you guys. There's 92 people at this fish boil. Well, you don't want to put them all in the kettle at once for this many people. So what I do, I come out, I cook the other half of the fish. As soon as you guys start to head inside, that way while they're serving that one, there is a fresh one out back here cooking. So it kind of just assures by the time the servers get around to all of your tables that you're all getting some fresh hot cooked fish. So it's really the best way to do it. You can put all the potatoes and onions in here at once, and the fish you do in batches. And if we start getting up near 100 people or so, I do 3 of these. So that's kind of how it works. Oh yeah, and everyone gets 2 of these. And this is part of 1,700 pounds of whitefish they hauled out yesterday too. So they are having a heck of a convention on this year. So and on November 1st, they close this down. No more white fishing as of November 1st.
Hey, you did Top Chef.
I was on Top Chef. Yes, I'm the famous boil master.
You were awesome.
Yeah, I was on an episode of Top Chef.
Wow.
Yes, my moment of fame. All fame, no fortune. All right, these will go in the kettle for about 7.5 minutes, which should be right about now. And it is 7:09, close enough. All right, now if you've never been to a fish boil before, well, obviously it is quite a dining experience to say the least. Door County is definitely home to the fish boils. We've been doing traditional fish boils here at the old post office restaurant since 1978 now, so 46 years they've been doing fish boils right out back here at this restaurant. I've been doing them here for the last 9 years. We do the fish boils in every single type of weather condition, no matter what. So yes, even if it's absolutely pouring down rain out back here, we do not close the restaurant down. But that's always the most commonly asked question I get. And yes, believe me, we can do this when it rains out. It's not any fun either. So I'm going to hit this gas with kerosene to get it ripping hot again. So beware.
Oh, we did the kerosene.
All right, now before you guys all get here, I fill the kettle up with 25 gallons of water. 3 cups of salt go into the water. Salt is the only seasoning you put into a fish boil that pretty much all the Norwegian settlers had back in the old days. However, it does season everything quite well. The fish, the potatoes, and the onions. You get your fire burning. It takes about 20 minutes or so to get the water to really start to boil. Once the water's boiling, you start your timer At 30 minutes, each fish boil takes a half an hour. Potatoes, they go in the kettle first for the whole half an hour. Onions will go in the kettle second, about 5 to 8 minutes after the potatoes go in, depending on the size of them. And then the fish go in the kettle for the last 7.5 minutes or so. That's all it really takes to cook the whitefish. And on an average season, I cut up and boil about 35,000 pounds of whitefish out of this kettle. So, yes, that's what we go through just at this restaurant alone. However, we're always able to get fresh whitefish right out of our own local waters up here in Door County. So they're definitely an important natural resource to the area. Now the fish boil itself, this is an old Scandinavian tradition. It was started off by Swedish and Norwegian immigrants back in the 1800s up here in Door County. Northern Door County, where you guys are all at, is very rich in Scandinavian heritage. You do kind of see it all over up here. Well, the fish boils are a part of our old Scandinavian heritage as well. Most of the Swedes and the Norwegians who settled here back in the 1800s, they homesteaded up here in Door County. They basically got free land by the government just to move up to these remote areas so they could start establishing growth to the upper parts of the Great Lakes. Some of them came up here and fished. Most of them came up here and worked in the logging industry. Those would have been your two main jobs back in the 1800s up here in Door County. There was plenty of fish out in the waters, and the peninsula itself was heavily forested. Now, I'm pretty sure that the fish boil was never really meant to become a tourist attraction like it is today, as this kind of thing would have just been done in the logging camps and the little tiny fishing villages back in the 1800s up here. So that's pretty much how this all started off. It wasn't until around the turn of the century people started to appreciate all this natural beauty Door County had to offer. They quit logging all the forests up here. They started preserving areas for state parks, including Peninsula, which is straight across that harbor, and they started to build and open the first hotels and resorts for tourists, including the Edgewater Resort. It opened up in the year 1900. It was one of the first hotels to open up here in the village of Ephraim. So right around that time, Door County started getting its very first tourists. Unlike today, where we get over 2 million visitors up here every summer, if you did come to Door County back in the early 1900s, you would have came up here by steamship. They didn't have the roads or highways built this far north on the peninsula until the late 1920s, so they started bringing tourists up here from Chicago and Milwaukee during the summertime by steamship. And if you were coming all the way up here from Chicago or Milwaukee on a steamship back in those early years, you probably were not going to come up to Door County for a long weekend or a day trip like people do nowadays. First of all, the tourist ship, it only came into Ephraim once a week back in those early years. Most of the people who did come up here on it, they were quite well off, and they would stay up here for a few weeks to a few months during the summertime. And back in those days, when you stayed at a hotel or resort for so long up here, well, they cooked all your meals for you while you stayed up here, and everybody pretty much ate the same thing. Well, some of those old hotels and resorts started to do fish boils, not only to feed their guests, but to entertain them, and that's how this tradition was born here in Door County. We basically have been doing fish boils the traditional way, just like this for the tourists ever since. So you can see it does go back. There's the other half of your fish. You can see it does go back well over a century. It's definitely a Door County original tradition, and you can date this all the way back to the very first European settlers we had up here in Door County. So it is a pretty neat thing. It's stuck around so long, and we still do it the traditional ways like this, using firewood, and very soon a can of kerosene, which I have right over here. Now the kerosene thing you do at the end of the fish boil, this is probably something that was discovered by accident if I had to take a guess, but the last thing that you do at a fish boil, that is before you go inside to eat it, is boil the whole kettle over. Once all this stuff starts cooking in here, you start to get this layer of foam and scum, and there's even ash from the fire that simmers to the surface of the kettle. So some genius along the way came up with the boil over where you throw a can of kerosene into the fire. It does make a huge fireball, makes a great picture as well, so have your camera ready for it. But more importantly, what it does, it makes the whole kettle boil over, and yes, all that foam and gunk from the top will go right along with it. It does actually work. Quite genius. You'll see for yourselves in a moment. After we boil the kettle over, all you guys do is go right ahead, walk back in between the two buildings, go right to your assigned tables. The servers come around. They bring everybody a plate with a couple of whitefish steaks. You get boiled baby red potatoes. You also get a boiled onion. You put melted butter all over the top of that. You get homemade breads, homemade coleslaw, and for dessert, a slice of Door County cherry pie. Enjoy. It is quite a feast. Also, too, if you're new to Door County, grab one of my flyers I have over on my rack. I was born and raised up here on the peninsula, so I did print off all of the key places to visit for people that are new to Door County, so feel free to grab one of those. Ready? All right, 1, 2, 3. Woo! There she goes. Well, I guess that worked pretty well. Look at that. Boom. Thanks, everyone. Enjoy. It's boiling. That was a view, even on my standards. You ready? All right.
Now I'm taking the bones out of the fish for you, but do be careful of just a few smaller bones, okay? You get most of them, we just can't guarantee them all. There's the first.